everybody. It's a pleasure being here as part of iGlobal, and I have eminent panel members who join me today. I have Mihir Shah, Services for NRI. I've got Advocate Yudhish Singh, leading advocate in Indian properties. I've got Tushar Hebelka from ICICI United Kingdom, a specialist in mortgages and Indian property financing and lending. So, welcome this evening. Uh, it's been a rock and roll ride on the Indian markets. The first 6 months of COVID, like any other market, the real estate market had almost no direction, drifting, force majeure clauses being called on commercial real estate. I'm sure quite a few hearts stopped on that, trying to figure what was going to happen to the monthly rent. And then we had residential, which was suddenly the larger properties which weren't selling, and everybody had moved to affordable, smaller homes, and that's what the market was in the year 2019, where smaller residential units were selling. Suddenly, the larger homes started moving off the shelves, and in 6 months, there was a huge amount of absorption of the larger residential units that one hadn't seen. Then moving to a new scenario, fractional ownership. That became a new topic of interest over the last 6 months. Firms started popping up, digital sales of real estate, of commercial properties, which were normally large tickets. You needed 100,000, 200,000 pounds to enter, equivalent of that to enter that space. But that suddenly became a 25 lakh rupee ticket. It became affordable for anybody who wanted a pie of the commercial real estate market. LLP structures sounds quite alien to quite a few of you, but sounds familiar to some of the large HNIs who use LLP structures and leverage. Then came around fractions in warehousing. Given the lockdown, logistics market boomed, warehouses boomed, e-commerce boomed. India had digital connectivity, one of the largest density of smartphones. You could reach anywhere in India, and that was the logistic boom where warehouses started kicking off. And then investors at retail tickets of again 25 and 50 lakhs started buying into the warehouse pie. Now, what happened? 6 months, the market was quiet. 6 months later, there is a new trend line. The financial year 2020-21 looks quite different for the real estate market in India. If one were to judge the first 6 months, one would quite say it's extremely desolate and one doesn't know which way the market's going to head off. But looking at the second 6 months, one feels very excited and says, why is it that I didn't participate in this market before? And I should have probably put some more chips on the table over here. And that is why I have this eminent panel. And I'm going to start off first with Mihir Shah. His firm specializes in advising on residential real estate investing in India, based out of UK. You can talk to him and he knows everything, how to move, how to make investments, how to ensure everything can be done sitting right out of UK as well as Europe and a couple of countries, and how do you still continue investing in Hamara Bharat. So over to you, Mihir.
Thank you, Deepak. First of all, good evening to my co-panelist, and good evening to the audience who has been watching us across the globe. And of course, thank you to iGlobal as well to organizing this event. Just a quick introduction that I'm Mihir Shah. I'm the founder director for the Services for NRI Limited. I'm a qualified chartered accountant in India and UK, and I have established this company 8 years ago, Services for NRI, and we are specializing, as Deepak introduced, that NRIs and OCIs who wants to do any sort of property investment back home in India. We do end-to-end activities, and also we have a legal help. If you require any legal assistance in regarding to land and property matter in India, we can help you out in everything on that. Now, the topic says that buying property, what are the risks and rewards? So I like to take it up in that way. Let's start with first with rewards. As Deepak said, the financial year 2021, first 6 months, nobody knew what going to happen in real estate market and nothing. But after 6 months, there are a lot of new measures which are introduced by the government. There are a lot of change in the trend in the market. So, like what happens, the concept or the culture of work from home has started. So since the concept work from home started, people have started thinking of having a bigger houses, because since if they have a husband, wife, children, their school is from the home, even they both are working, they need a more space to do. So that give a demand for a ready to move in apartments, especially in residential market. And with the ready to move in apartments, there are a lot of benefits which governments gives. Like there is no GST. In under construction property, you will have a 5% GST, whereas in ready to move in, there is no GST. The home loan interest rate has all-time low today in the India market. If you see sometime last year, this time of the year, the home loan interest rate were ranging in a double digit, whereas today is going as low as 6.7%. So it is a best time to take a home loan in India. Plus, if you see the home loan, there is a lot of rebates has been introduced on a stamp duty and registration. Many states like Maharashtra, Karnataka have introduced, if you are buying a property, they have rebate in a stamp duty, registration, and all those things they have got rebate. So these are all benefits which are giving it. Now, again, the exchange rate, if you see currently the exchange rate all time high in pound to rupee, or rupee to pound is ranging in 100, in the range of 100. So that is again a very good advantage for an NRI who is looking to invest in a property. It's going to give them a lot of this thing that. Plus, there are developers who has been offering good demand, but good offers, good discount. If you have something, you can discuss with them on the table, and you will get amazing offers for them. Again, the what happens, the millennium, the who were initially a thought of having a rental as their concept, living on a rental basis. But now, because of this pandemic, work from home culture, they are also shifting towards a buying a home. So currently, the demand has gone up very high. Today's date, we are in a top 7 cities of India. The 90% of the pre-COVID levels, the sales is going on. So this is a very good thing which you can look into it. Plus, as the demand for ready-to-move in properties are going high and they are selling very fast, and there are no new launches or very few launches, the supply is also getting lower and lower day by day. So in a future, when there is a demand increases and the supply is low, the prices will definitely go high. So I would say that this is a very good time to invest in Indian real estate because it is all time low. And from here, the prices will go up. But now this is I've talked about rewards. But of course, any investment you do, there is a risk involved in it. But again, there are government has introduced so many measures to cover those risks as well. Initially, what was the risk? The project gets stuck. If project gets stuck because of two reasons, either they don't have approvals, all the approvals in place, or they don't have a funding. The money is the problem. But in 2017, government of India has introduced RERA, Real Estate Regulation Act, which makes that they have to, all the approvals are in place. They check all the approvals are in place. The builder, before starting any project, they should have a 50% of the project cost in a escrow account. All money goes into the escrow account. So there is the RERA website gives lot of transparency. There are, if there is any issues, if there is any litigation, you can watch, you can check on the RERA website. So again, all mitigation risk is mitigated by RERA, and RERA is become very transparent in terms of resolving issues. If it is a consumer has a problem, RERA can resolve it very quickly. They have a timeline, 45 to 90 days timeline to make decision. So these are the quick things. So NRIs get a lot of confidence being a RERA coming into the market from last 4 years. And after that, also, I said the funding is the problem. The government of India, along with the SBI, they have introduced a Swami Fund, which gives last mile funding. The fund size is at 25,000 crore, which out of which they have disbursed about 12,000 crore, and they have covered about 123 projects, which has about 81,000 houses. So these are the stuck. These projects were stuck prior to 2013, but now they are finishing. So people are getting property in their hand because of this last mile funding. whatever the risk is there is being covered by the government. So I would say, yes, there is a risk involved in it, but the government of India is taking a lot of initiative to mitigate those risks. And as of now, there are a lot of these rewards are there to consider all-time low. I would say this is the best time to invest in a property if you are looking for an investment, or if you're looking for a family, or if you're thinking of going back in, settling back in India. This is the best time. After 6 months, this price will never going to be rock bottom. So this is the right time to do that. Deepak, this is what I
Well
want
said,
to say,
Mihir.
and over to you.
Well said, Mihir. Well said, Mihir. I love the optimism that you bring to the table. And yes, there's a fair bit of regulation that's happened through RERA. But I'm sure in Yudhish's experience, he'll probably tell us that all is not so rosy. Having lived in England myself, bought an asset when I was there, I think life has been, it is far more easier today to do these transactions. But when the challenges actually appear on your horizon as risks, then probably the scene doesn't look as rosy. So, with that point, I'm going to pass this off to Yudhish, who not only handles dispute litigation but title checks, understands nuances, because real estate is a state subject. It's not a federal subject. So, on that note, Yudhish, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I think I'm going to pick up where Mihir left off, but draw a different timeline. What is happening with the real estate sector, especially with the residential part of purchases, is actually a transformation which started somewhere around 2015. That is when the government started realizing that they need to clean up the real estate, they need to transform, the unfinished projects need to be completed. GST was being introduced at that point of time. RERA was being introduced. RERA was introduced in 2016, became effective in 2017. So a shift in mindset started, and that was led actually by the Supreme Court, because if you see, Supreme Court has taken up each and every project which was not completed, whether it's all the projects in Noida, the ones in Gurgaon, and has taken a keen interest to get those completed. So there has been, in my view, because we advise clients on the transactional side as well as the dispute side, I see a mental shift in the approach to purchasing property. People are far more aware of the regulations of the law. They are looking at being judicious, paying the stamp duty, getting the property registered definitively in their name. So there has been while it is still a buyer beware market, like Mihir said, I don't believe that with real estate, there will always, with any asset investment, there will always be a certain amount of risk. But people are becoming smarter. They're becoming sharper when investing in real estate. We have seen a difference in perspective. We have also seen a lot of a lot of changes in dispute resolution, whether it's the consumer forums, it's the High Court, whether it's the RERA Tribunal, which is a special court under the law of RERA. They have become much more experienced and much more practical in making decisions relating to real estate disputes. That in itself has brought a lot more confidence to the real estate sector. And, touching upon what we were talking about, the uncertainty when COVID set in, and whether real estate was adversely affected. Yes, I do believe that. I mean, I have clients which are multinationals, which are companies, which are individuals. We had a wide array of questions where people were worried about what's going to happen. But everybody who has been judicious, who has done their due diligence, who has followed the law, has got well-drafted agreements made. There was a certain amount of confidence they had that they would stick it out. And like you said, there has been a resurgence like we didn't expect, because we've suddenly seen the market go through like nothing had ever occurred. That there was no lockdown, there was no COVID, and I can personally tell you that whether commercial property or residential property, in terms of our advisory work or our transactional work, we have definitely seen a steep increase. And I think one of the things with purchasing immovable property assets, real estate assets, and land assets in India is India is a very large country. So even though the local laws might differ, the local economic climate might vary. One thing is in common: people want houses, they want shops. It's an aggressive economy, it's a growing economy, and that sheer demand makes it a very resilient market. Every time we see a slump, we think, oh, now it's going to take us 5 years to get over this, and then 2 years later we see a resurgence, whether it's in commercial sector or residential sector. So my advice to non-residents, we advise a lot of non-residents, would be clear on what you're looking at. Are you looking at making investment only for speculative purposes, or do you want to utilize that end asset to, where are you looking to purchase? Be very clear where and what type of unit or what type of property you're looking at purchasing. Third, please do your due diligence, because every property has a title chain, it has encumbrances, it has disputes, it has litigation. It's a bit like a family. Like every Indian family has a history, every property has a history, every plot of land has a history. And my lawyers like us, it's our job to sit and decipher that history, and then, like Mihir said, to mitigate the risks that could arise in the transaction. So I would say doing diligence, following the letter of the law. The laws are very clear and substantive when it comes to property laws in India. And lastly, I would say, don't buy an asset in India and just leave it. One of the biggest issues we have is people who buy assets from abroad and then they have squatters on their property. They have issues with regard to property tax. They have several other kinds of issues. So if it is a buyer beware market, if people are diligent, they do their homework, they follow correct documentation and correct procedure, it is a very good investment even now. It's a very safe investment because the market in itself is very resilient. It's an ever-evolving market. As long as there are more Indians being produced and land is a fixed commodity, there's going to always be demand. And I can say this because we started from the point on COVID that there has definitely been an upswing in the market right now.
Excellent, Yudesh. I think that was a very balanced view. Market's good. I think a lot of clients coming over to you, but also caveat emptor, something that you've still said, yes, be careful. I think with that note, I think that makes a perfect entry for Tushar, who's actually been in the lending business for the last 15 years. And Tushar, I'm sure, has a lot to talk about the trend lines on leverage, the cautions that he sees as a conservative and leading banker. So over to you, Tushar.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mihir. Good evening, Yudesh, and good evening to our audience. Thanks a lot, Global. I mean, it's a good platform. I'm really thankful for this opportunity of engaging with the audiences here. Yeah, I mean, just to take the points up from what Mihir said, what Yudesh says, we have seen the lending in this space evolve. Just to give a perspective, I mean, the mortgage market or the mortgage book size in India today is 25 lakh crore. Annually, another 6.5 lakh crore keeps getting added to this. I mean, one can simply imagine the size at. I mean, well summarized, just a quick recap, I mean, from what Yudesh and Mihir say. I mean, the times have definitely improved. The advent of RERA, introduction of GST, demonetization, correction in labor laws, unlocking of government land for real estate. All these things indicate that the market and the transactions are not going to dry up soon. I mean, this is probably transparent time at its best, and this transparency is here to stay. I mean, a lot of times in earlier years, I mean, NRIs always used to have this apprehension about the the quality of title, the quality of product output, and hence under construction property purchase was mostly linked to investment objectives. Today, with the prices correcting, with GST, with RERA, with the kind of offers that developers have, for the buyers, lowest ever interest rate regime, which increases the affordability. The prices have definitely been the most attractive as far as real estate sector is concerned. So, having said that, where do we head from here? ICICI Bank, for that matter, that the institution that I represent, and likewise other lenders are also looking at NRIs as a big segment, which currently contribute. While there are no reported numbers for NRI, but guesstimates indicate that this is merely 4% or 5% of the overall industry. So, the way forward with the currency, as Mihir highlighted, the power of currency, the scenarios in India, the way forward for NRIs, and there is a substantial movement from India towards UK in terms of people who are coming. We see close to around 40-50,000 people, new entrants in UK every year, who come here on work permits, work visas. A lot of those people who want to leverage on their income here in UK and buy an asset in India, probably the most appropriate time. They get capital contribution based off of their from their income here in UK, and they can leverage themselves on the lowest interest rate regime bankers have to offer. To look at it from another perspective, when I mentioned about transparency, in the earlier days, 15 years back, when I was in my earlier days in mortgage lending, we used to operate on what was called as PLR. Changed the regime. 2010 came base rate. 2016 came MCLR. But while regulator introduced these benchmark rates, they were largely guidelines, and it was left to the lenders to quote or set their benchmark rates. 2019 was a defining year. In last quarter of the calendar year, the regulator introduced what is external benchmark rate linked pricing. So today, banks in India are lending at repo rate, and repo rate is reviewed 4 times a year by RBI. All lending is linked to repo rate. Just to give a context and a flavor to people, if I was to say, someone had a 50 lakh loan at the beginning of 2017, and I compare, a person with a loan on PLR, loan on base rate, MCLR, and another one on with a loan linked to repo rate. The repo rate has corrected 225 basis points. Compare that with average PLR reduction across the industry of 5 basis points or 10 basis points, and maybe MCLR correction of 90 basis points. The impact in terms of savings is phenomenal. So another aspect in terms of leveraging through loans, which people had, was their loans would not get repriced. Today, this repricing gets auto-administered on a quarterly basis, which is such a powerful tool. The extent of saving over 2017 till 2021, in last 3.5 years, would be phenomenally higher in a repo rate linked loan. And hence, people who take loans today in this regime are bound to sleep peacefully without worrying about high cost of loans, without worrying about any challenges in terms of dealing with their loans. Digital platforms are evolving, have evolved to an extent. People can apply for a loan, sitting here. Yeah.
Tushar. Thank you very much. We seem to be running short of time. I think that was a great discussion and a great insight from all of you into the marketplace. So summing up for our audience, excellent rates, the lowest ever, a sound regulatory regime, an excellent regulator which is in place, and I think the market's out there for you. So wishing you all the very best. I think that was a super evening, super session. I wish you all very well. Thank you to the audience and putting it back into the studio. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.